creams in front of other guys, but if women tried that, they'd be pulled in. You don't do that. That's that's not ladylike. But so they had pockets when they were younger, and women had dresses, no pockets. It's changed today somewhat, but it's still very much the same in a lot of ways. So guys had a broader range, and they looked at more things, and they tried more things, so they invented more. And Jacque always said, like, the first extrusion was made by guys watching other guys taking a shit, and they got the idea of the first extrusion, But anyhow, this is you make a shape, and you heat. Yes, you're feeling that one. You heat a long tube of aluminum, so it can be pushed through that shape. And in this case, it was a U shape. And then they extrude it out, and they cut it 40 feet, 25 feet, and they use it in the building trade. And this is just to show how complex an extrusion can be. This says something like extrusions around the world, buy from this company. And they would, the same thing, and they would split it really, thin and put it on different things. And this is how Jacque designed the prefabricated home right after World War II. He thought that the aircraft factories were going to close, the aluminum factories, that do aluminum, and so he designed an aluminum house for them so they wouldn't have to close. And then he designed some of the first extrusions that were really, really complex, and they worked real well. So anyway, he talks about extruding full buildings. And you make dies, different shapes, and you extrude the material, and then you cut it. And then you lift it with this and carry it to the site and put it on this way. Of course, this is kind of for film, but you really don't even need to do that. You can put it down here, and you can lift it up and snap it in place.
No one will be working. No one's really working.
They could watch over.
No, they will. They will.
So it's just limited work.
All of the things that Jacque designs, they eventually come out in technology. They have, and from what I've seen, yeah. But what
I was saying, like, no one's gonna be doing hard labor.
why would we want that? It's a waste of people. It's like going to a store. Look at these poor people sitting behind the counter all day long, waiting for people to come in to sell them something.
There will be people to look over it, though.
No, you don't even need that after a while. In the beginning, yeah.
That's fine.
So these modules would be like wired and everything. The modules?
Yeah, they could be wild. They can have shapes within it.
When you plug them into the building unit, then you just have to connect it.
It's like a cannon plug. You can just plug in from the main shaft.
Buckminster Fuller came up with that idea as well.
Buckminster Fuller had a lot of good, ideas. He was really good technically, but he was really bizarre in a lot of ways. Jacque met him several times through his life. When Jacque met him, he was talking to Jacque, and he said, "See that person over there? He's not very bright because he has a short forehead." He believed in phrenology. And when Jacque met him, he was doing the Dymaxium car, and he would say, "Yeah, it's got a lot of pickup." And Jacque was questioning it, and he said, "No, pick up women. You can pick up women." But
Always perfect.
When Jacque met him, he would talk to him about social direction, because Jacque felt when he was very young that he really started looking for new social designs, because he was raised during the time of the Great Depression, and he looked around and he saw things in store windows, and he saw technology still there, and he saw the fields could still grow, but nobody was working because they didn't have money in their pockets. And he felt it was the rules of the game that the system went by that was ridiculous. And when he was very young, he started looking for new social directions. So he approached Buckminster Fuller on that too, and Fuller said something like, "Boy, I've got my car out. I can't even get my car out there." He said, "You want to change everything?" So, he didn't get too far with Fuller. Although Fuller later became pretty social in certain directions, but he didn't have any concrete plan, and he didn't really understand human behavior that well. He was pretty metaphysical in a lot of ways, and very poetic.
And Jacque started off the talk today by saying we don't have our own language. Fuller made up his own words.
He did, so does Jacque, a lot of ways, and he advocates that too. Yeah, then it becomes your word when Other people do that. Yeah, but the words are based on certain things too. You know, like Jacque came up with the idea with the word socio-cyberneering was the name of his nonprofit organization. It was before the word cyber came out and the big rage of cyber, but it was cybernation and engineering applied to the social design. So it's socio-cyberneering. Yeah, but it's based on something. So anyway, this concept, and you can have different designs. I don't know if I got that. So these are all different designs in architecture that this is a cable-stayed building, like a bridge. There you go. You hold up the bridge. You know, in Russia, there's a lot of bridges that fall down, a lot of rooftops that fall down with a heavy weight. So this is very strong, and you don't need columns in here holding up in the middle. This is like a suspension bridge almost. He's got a lot of different designs like that. So, and then this is building. You know, you're talking about individuality. Do you think Jacque is an individual? You know what I mean? These people who are fighting and saying, "Whoa, we need more individuality." I think Jacque is more individual than anybody I've ever seen in the culture. I don't think Jacque would stand for a culture that didn't give people that range and the ability to create and design in many different ways. So this is the government.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, this is the government of the future. See, one of those panels, that's right. That's the Earth in real time. And one of those panels would be like the Department of Agriculture. And you can sort of think about it as it would have its electrical chemicals into the soil. When the water table dropped, it would pump more water in there. When the nutrients dropped, it would pump more nutrients in there. What does the government really do today? If you ask them, how do you make better transportation? They don't know. How do you eliminate war? They don't know. How do you get more yield per acre? They don't know. So what do they know? What are they doing? So you can enable technology to serve you best without, you know, it's like when there's a hurricane and a lot of the city is wiped out, and then they have the president fly over and look down and say, well, yes, there is a hurricane. Things are gone. So what? He doesn't know how to correct it.
So I mean, this means we're talking about manipulating the Earth's
power at any cost, at any rate, to the detriment of anybody or any country. The resource-based economy and the Venus Project is for the well-being of people and the protection of the environment. And when those are the core roots, along with other things that we're interested in, the thinking is very different, and the way you manipulate things has very different standards. Yeah. So anyway, these are cities in the sea, and the sea really has a wealth of resources in there. Today, the Army, I think it was the Army or the Navy, dumped 67 tons of nerve gas in metal containers off the Gulf Stream in about 1970 or so. So, you know, who are they protecting us? You know, they just carry out orders that are insane. And we'll be cleaning that up. So these are our cities, not just for enjoying yourself, but these are research centers to clean up the environment, clean up the oceans, and extract different things that might be needed from it.
Are these pilings? Is that what it is?
Yeah, those are, you know, aircraft runways for the oceans.
These are these?
Yeah.
These foundations that go down
Yeah.
to the floor?
They go down to the floor.
It's not floating. Some of these are different ways. Some of them have chambers in it that keep it anchored down there with cables and pilings. And these are automatic bridge constructions right here with the catamaran, the white catamaran bringing out the bridge structures, and then they close and then they interlock, showing how many things can be automated. We can go.
Look,
little roaches.
Yeah, the roach have been around a long time.
Every human being wants to be able to eat.
Made everything he did very functional. She's like a skin, but many different things. And
don't get too close to the water.
Come over here if you want to take some pictures.
That's what alligator is?
Well, it moves around from spot to spot. You probably won't see it today. It's pretty cold. The baby.
That's good.
It's all right. It won't bother you.
We used to carry the meetings in here, but now we're in the other building. So.
Yeah, they were trying to shoot a video, and an entertainer person came along and told Jacque to break a leg, and he took it literally. So what are you going to do, you know?
About 4 years old or 6, friends of mine bring that picture to my lab, and I asked them to draw a picture of a human being 4 years old. And this is what they come up with. Some of you still draw like this. Anyway, after they make this drawing, they bring it into school, and the teacher gives them crayons to color the buildings and all that. And then the teacher walks toward the wall to hang them up. And I said, don't hang them up. She said, why not? Because you will arrest the child at that level if you hang it up. She says, I don't know what you're talking about. So I called the kid over, and I said, how does that guy get into that building? And the kid says, I made the building too small right away, or the man too big, and he's changed right away. And I asked him, does this guy eat anything? Looks like he never ate anything in his life. So the kid adds mass, not very good. You know what I mean? And he'll never do that again. That's what I mean by interrupt children. Don't hang up what they do, because it's childish. You know what I mean? People say, how do you get to children? That's how you get them. You ask them questions, because this guy can't get in that door. See? Now, I'm going to tell you a little more about that so you'll understand it better. Some assistant to the dean at Princeton came to some of my seminars. He came with a negative attitude. When he left, he said, would you mind coming to Princeton and talking about the way you think? I said, they wouldn't listen to me either. He said, I'm assistant to the dean. I can make them listen to you. I said, good, okay. So I said, I'd like everybody to come, not just the sociology department. That's who he wanted me to address, the sociology department. I said, I want to address the whole university. How do you do that? He said, just say the subject is man can think or reason. That'll make them all angry. They'll all want to come. So it made them angry and they all wanted to come. So they had to hold a meeting in the auditorium. And the head of the optics department, that's lenses and magnifying, he said, I take issue with you. I think man can think and reason. So I said to him, I haven't said one word yet. And and you haven't, you've come up with this. I said, give me one example of man thinking, anything. So he said, there are thousands of examples. I says, I can't do anything with that. Give me one. He says, well, there was a time when there was no camera, and somebody had to think of a camera. See, that's where he took issue with me. So I said to him, did you know that in the Holy Land, 1,000 years ago, they made domes out of clay, mud, and they used to sag. So they put branches in with the mud to keep it from sagging. And they had no glass windows in those days. So they made a small hole in the mud, very small. And if the sun was out, you saw people walking upside down on your wall, on the inside. Did you know that? If you go into a barn today, where the knot hole, you know what I mean by a knot hole, was pushed out, and there's cows walking outside, you'll see them walking upside down on the wall. Not very sharp, but the smaller the hole, the sharper the image. Anyway, that's where the pinhole camera came from, I told him. So I said, you mean man never invented it? Well, that suggested it. Now the people 1,000 years ago used to charge 2 pieces of silver to see the upside down world. So you went into their home, you gave them 2 pieces of silver, and then you'd unplug that hole, and you'd see cows walking upside down. He called it the upside down world. So that's where that came from. He was no longer aggressive. So he said to me, what about the motion picture camera? He said, somebody had to think of it. I said, the Chinese 1,500 years ago made a girl out of paper. She looked something like that. Can you all see it? It's called a dancing girl. That's what they called it. And they cut this out of paper, and they glued a lot of pieces of paper together and painted it black. And when they put a candle in front of it, the candle flickered and the girl moved. The shadow moved. Do you understand that? Nobody ever sat down and invented a movie camera right away. It's a series of developments. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Little by little, over many years, until if you put 3 candles there, you had 3 dancing shadows. I hope you understand that. So you don't need to say, who invented the movie camera? Nobody invented it. Nobody can sit down and say, God, make a movie camera. The brain can't do that unless it sees something. Okay. If you understand that, I met a guy named Osceola, who was, the real Osceola was the Indian chief in Florida. I said, do you know where the bow and arrow came from? He said, no, but his great-grandfather told him that the Indians, American Indians, used to skin a bear and put it out in the sun, and it would shrink to half the size, and that bothered them. So they built a frame around the bear and tied pieces of leather to keep it from shrinking. So anybody doesn't understand what I mean? They didn't want it to shrink that much. How did they cut the leather? With natural glass, called obsidian. They cut strips of glass, of the leather. But when they put the leather in the sun, it shrunk to a short, fat piece of leather, and that bothered them. So they tied the leather to a twig of a tree, real tight up on the bottom, so it couldn't shrink as much. But they didn't always find a thick enough branch, and if you used a thinner branch, the leather shrunk and made a bow. You think you know what I mean? If you don't understand me, when you cut the leather strip into a fine strip like that, and you tie it to a thin branch, the thin branch is like that. The leather shrunk and bent the branch this way, and you had the bow.
Want to hold it up, John? Hold it up?
Yeah. The bow looked like that. When the leather shrunk, it pulled the wood into a bow shape. And that's where the bow and arrow came from. And if you plucked on it, went bang, So if you took different sizes of it, he made a heart. But man didn't sit down and say, I gotta make a bow and arrow. It doesn't work like that. All inventors work the way I'm talking about. They see something, and that something stimulates them. Now, we don't always know what it was, but here it is again. This is a man sitting in the cave. Can you see it? It's not a very good drawing. When normal little boys climb a hill, if they step on a severe incline, they slip. But you look for a slight flat, and you get up by stepping on the slight flat. Do you know what I mean by that? After you live there 10 years, the hill gets to look different. It gets to look like this. By stepping on the slight flats, after 10 years, it looks like steps. So when you move to a new cave, you made steps. But you don't sit back and say, I gotta make steps to get up the hill. Nobody can do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what I mean by man can't think or reason. He has to have experience. He sees a leaf fall and spin. That's where the propeller came from. Some leaves are twisted, and when they fall, they spin. That suggested the propeller. Leonardo da Vinci was a nature lover, always out in the woods looking at nature. And that's why I had so many ideas. Now, if you want a kid to become creative, let's say you have a kid, and you want that kid to become creative. First of all, I want to tell you what people told me. They told me that some people were creative and some weren't. That doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't teach me anything. So I said, what is creativity? So we don't know what it is. It's just some natural occurrence in man's brain. Now let me tell you what creativity is. You can write it down if you're going to forget. Creativity is taking known elements and putting them together in unique ways. Do you know what that means? Like, they go to a movie and they see a Martian. They say, boy, those Hollywood people sure are good at making Martians. They have imagination. They don't have imagination. The Martian has a grasshopper's head and crab's claws. That's what I mean by known elements put together. Do you understand that? They can't sit down and create a Martian. It has to be made of known elements put together in unusual ways. That's what a writer is. He reads a lot of stories and he gets ideas from the stories and he rewrites it. So if you ask a creative artist, what makes you creative? He says, I don't know, it's just something that comes to me. He doesn't know. I ask children, how do you walk? He says, I don't know, I used to crawl, then I got up and fell over, then I got up and I walked. So I tried to make a robot when I was 17. It kept falling over. So I said to myself, what is walking? I said, I don't know. I better find out what it is. So I got up like this. And I said, in order to walk, I have to take the weight off this leg and head it in that direction. And I have to take the weight off this leg and head it in that direction. Then I built a robot that didn't fall over. If you do a description of what walking is, if you take all the words that are empty, like a person says, I met a nice man. What do you mean by nice? What do you mean by nice? He had $10 million and he gave $2 to a poor family. Is that nice? It's nothing. So ask people what they mean when they use the word, the world ought to live in peace and harmony. How do you do that? I don't know. So it's nothing. It's noise. When a person says, too bad people kill each other, they should learn to be brotherly. Well, how do you do that? It's all left out. So I'm going to tell you what the Venus Project is now, if you don't know. The Venus Project is a plan for having a world that has no war, no hunger, no unemployment, and no corruption. How do you do that? Here's how you do it. You declare all the earth's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people. Does anybody doesn't know what that means? All the earth's resources become the property of all the nations of the world. They are to join together, and all the artificial boundaries that separate people are taken away. And all people are told that they can do anything if they go to school and learn how. So when I traveled through the world on a lecture tour, I saw Arabs in Arab garb with cell phones. I saw photoelectric cells on the backs of camels to heat up the coffee. Isn't that amazing? So it's spreading, technology. And what you have to understand is where it comes from. Where do ideas come from? I don't know, it's just something that I'm born with. No. Here's where it comes from. If you show a kid pictures of insects, all kinds of insects, spiders, centipedes, grasshoppers, moths, the more pictures they have a broader frame of reference. Then show them different kinds of people from Japan, China, Thailand, different faces. He has a broader concept. But if he just sees Americans, he doesn't understand when he sees a Filipino. What's the matter with him? Or what a funny face he has. Nobody has a funny face. They're different than we are. You know what I mean? So show a kid thousands of pictures, then ask him to draw. He'll draw more than he would had not seen those pictures of insects. So the people in Hollywood look at a lot of picture books, look at different sailboats, motor cars. The more you look at, the broader your creativity. So anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about? And if you deprive a child of looking at pictures of different kinds of people, different types of electric motors, hundreds of different types, the more they look at, the broader the creativity. Creativity is not something you're born with. It's something you're trained to by showing kids pictures of different things. Then he says, I'm going to make my own people. He makes them of a little bit from all the other people. Do you understand what I mean? Now people like to believe their own kind is special. I'm a Swede and I'm proud of it. I'm Norwegian and I'm proud of it. That separates people. That's not good. You just say I'm a human being and I'm proud of it. See? When you make a patriot of somebody, they say pledge allegiance to the United States. My grandfather loused me up. During the Depression, he said people came from all over the world to America, and they brought the printing press. The Arabs gave us mathematics, I don't know if you know that. Algebra. A guy named Algebra was an Arab, gave us algebra. So if you teach children that all nations have contributed to the well-being of the United States, instead of this is strictly American, then you're using it as propaganda. Do you know what I mean? And you can't dislike anybody from any country. You understand that their country is limited because they don't have the exposure we have. Americans are exposed to all kinds of ideas from all over the world. So my grandfather says to me, never pledge allegiance to any one country. And he said, pledge allegiance to the earth. Never dump any toxic material into the oceans or rivers. It'll kill fish. And in time, it'll kill people. So he said, just pledge allegiance to the earth and everybody on it. I said, how do I do that? I said, just refuse to pledge allegiance. So the teacher got up and said, we're all going to pledge allegiance to the United States. I says, I can't do that due to my upbringing. She says, oh yeah? She grabbed me by the ear right to the principal's office. And she said to the principal, he doesn't want to pledge allegiance to the flag. So the principal said to the teacher, you're excused. The minute she walked out, he put his arm around me. He says, why don't you want to pledge allegiance? Everybody does. I said, everybody once believed the earth was flat. That doesn't make it flat, but everybody believes. So he said to me, what do you think of our teaching methods? I said, sir, can I be frank with you? He says, of course, it's the only way to be. I said, they're terrible. The teacher used a language that I don't understand. When I spell cat with a K, she said, that's wrong. Now what the hell does that wrong tell you? Nothing. She said we could have used a C instead of a K. That's the way we do it. But she said, that's wrong, which doesn't tell you anything. Then she said, that's not what I told you. That doesn't tell me anything either. You understand what I mean? Just saying this is the greatest country in the world doesn't tell me anything. I said, you have to give me more information. Well, it's isolated from the rest of the countries. There can't be an invasion right away. They have to cross the ocean to get there. You know what I mean? Now, where did we get this land? We stole it from the Indians. The Indians didn't say, come on over, build whatever you want to build, do whatever you want to do. No, we slaughtered thousands of Indians. And after that, we put up a reward of $10 for every Indian you killed. There were government agencies. And a guy walked over to a government agency and he said, I just killed 10 Indians. So the government says, how do we know that? I said, what do you mean? Got to bring back a piece of the Indian. Scalp. So they started to scalp Indians and brought 10 scalps back. That's how they knew how many Indians you killed. But the Indians fought back. They fought real hard. So we slaughtered millions of buffalo to try to starve the Indians. After we succeeded in that, we drove them into the desert region and gave them the worst land in the country. Very little good land. And we took it away from them. And when they say the sun never sets on England, what do you think, where do you think the British got all that land from? They stole it by wars, invasions. All nations, Germany, England, France, all stole the land. So I'm saying they're all corrupt. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not mad at any one country, they're all lousy. People ask me, where's a good place to go? I said, I don't have to make it. So, what does the Venus Project really want? What the Venus Project wants is to tell all people that they are capable of great creativity. They're capable of good design if they're educated to do so. But if they live in a primitive country, they do the same thing over and over again. Like up the Amazon River, there are natives that build boats. The same way they built them 1,000 years ago, rafts. They copy their friends, but they never change. But in a country where you say, think differently, see if you can work out a boat that's faster, cheaper than the one you're making. So you have to encourage people to do that. Otherwise they do the same thing. They copy each other. Okay? Now, when I say the first man that made an airplane doesn't make an airplane from his head. He says, man tried to fly, what did he do? How did he do it? He made wings and he beat them. That didn't work. He made wings that were too small, the plane didn't get off the ground. So you got to find out about, I'm going to use old language, the mistakes of other people. Nobody ever makes a mistake. I think I mentioned that before. They don't know. How do you know how big to make a propeller on an airplane? This big, this big, this big. You have to make different sizes, find out which works. That's what I mean by nobody ever makes a mistake. When a guy introduces another guy to his sister, if he's from Sicily, and if the guy scans his sister with sexual intent, looking at the legs, the breasts, you know, he wants to sock the guy because that's the thing to do. If you come from Naples, Italy, that isn't the thing to do. If you come from Sicily, that's the thing to do. So it depends on where you're brought up and the values. All your values are handed to you by your parents. Good boys don't do that. Good girls don't do that. And don't do what? They tell you don't do that. Don't sit around and pet. Wait till you get married. All kinds of stuff which has nothing to do with anything. And they're just your folks talking to you. They mean well. And they're trying to protect you. But they don't know what to do. So I'm saying that most of the world doesn't know what to do. Even the riots in Egypt they're against the rulers, and they want to throw them out. And the rulers are killing Egyptians. But even if they got in, they wouldn't know what to do. So I'm going to tell you what we do. Somebody once asked me, who makes the decisions in the Venus Project? So I tried to answer, and the answer was very different than what he expected. We pick up samples of the soil from all over the world, and we send those samples to the Department of Agriculture in different countries. There they cut up the samples and they look at what the soil contains. And they say, by what this soil contains, it's best to grow beets for 3 years, then rotate to sugarcane. That's not an opinion, that's a finding. You understand the difference? Which is the strongest metal? I don't know. Put it in the machine and bend it, and let us know when it bends. That's how you do it. So you do a survey of what the carrying capacity of the earth is, how much land we have, how much arable land, you know what that means? That you can grow food on. How much water you have under the ground. After your survey, you say the earth can support 7 billion people. If you go 8 billion, you're going to generate malnutrition. If you go more than the carrying capacity of the earth, if you take a state like Arizona, and you say, how big a city can we build? The answer is, I don't know. How much arable land is there in Arizona? How much water is there underground? This amount. That will determine the size of the city, not Fresco. No one makes any decisions in the Venus Project. They arrive at them. You know the difference? Arriving at a decision or making a decision. Politicians make decisions. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You shouldn't do that. You do a survey of what the earth can carry, and then you maintain a population through education. You tell children a story. The story is called Dynamic Equilibrium. And this is a story. You show children this map. And you show 2 coyotes. And you show 2 rabbits. The rabbits eat the plants under the ground. And they multiply. And the coyotes in this area cannot multiply unless there's enough rabbits to feed them. And if there's a drought and the plant roots die, and the rabbits die, so do the coyotes. That's called dynamic equilibrium in nature. You can't grow all the coyotes you want. You have to take care of the rabbits too. Do you understand that? That's why man's decisions are no good. They have to be based upon work like that. So when the Venus Project says all the Earth's resources have to be shared by all the world's people, then no one will invade your country because you control the water and the soil. By force, your armies took over the richest land, and that's why other people invade your land, because they don't have anything. So war does not occur because people are bad, they are good. You understand? And people ask me, why do all your buildings have curves in it? I don't see any square buildings. Well, because if you take cement and do this, it's self-supporting. That's what this building is. It uses less cement and supports greater load. If you cement this together, it can hold up even more load. A curved surface, a flat surface, can hold nothing. It has no support structure. So bring that gadget over, Roxanne.
I'd have to do it right here,
Yes,
because it might be on the
Oh, it's going to destroy the hell out of that table. You can't, you better use this one.
Why don't you show them?
It's not going to work, Rock.
I can do it, you want to do it under the brace?
Yes, over
Yeah.
the bread.
It'll be all right, Joe.
No, it won't.
Larry,
Yeah.
can you bring some books
It'll destroy
over?
the books, not the
It's going to
table.
destroy their table.
We're going to start with, next time we'll try that, so. Is that, I'm gonna wheel this so you can see it,
Yeah,
I mean, center.
toward you. That's it. It's one piece of paper. Now, you can't do that with a straight sheet. Since when all our buildings are curved, and much stronger curves. Those of you that are sitting back here, you can get up and get closer to watch this. And if you got a camera, it's a good thing to turn it on.
They're hollow inside this phone.
It's crazy. Is that just taped?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to sneeze.
Don't put them on the table though. Yeah. Thank you.
One at a time. That's why I don't want you to take my word for it.
How many we got?
Yep. 11.
She should have had a hard back on the bottom.
Yeah, probably. Wouldn't have mattered. Oh, that's not 7.
Would you?
Looking at that?
Quarter of an inch.
That's hard to say. I want to write this book if it falls. More than.
You should have some over here. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I just gave
No, we
Oh,
don't
wow, very
use
much
them all.
of those. Excellent.
Hold that.
How many is that?
14. No, 15.
Yeah, it's just this paper.
Whoa,
Need more, Larry.
All right.
More.
that's
More.
amazing.
More.
All the way until it crushes.
We want more.
It doesn't have a limit. Oh, it does.
No limit. We haven't reached it yet.
It's amazing.
Let's make the record. Just one of these.
Whoa, you're getting near the limit, I think.
Right, you see some bubbles?
It's a little wobble.
No? Don't sneeze, everybody.
That's incredible.
How many we got? Over a record.
How many is your...
Do we have a record to beat? 32. Ooh.
Whoa.
You're not gonna make it on that rickety table.
It's not the table, as long as it's level.
Table.
No, the table wouldn't do it
That's
at all.
right.
I gotta get more, huh? Are we out of them here? Watch your head when it falls.
74?
Next one, a quarter
Very
of an
wobbly.
inch away from you.
Really?
8.5 inches away from you.
I can sneeze. This way?
More away from you.
Okay.
More.
How many is that?
It's one piece of paper.
This is bigger. I'm afraid. Let me try this on.
catch the fall.
I'm trying to get, I was thinking,
You don't want to back up.
Yeah. Front of yours.
go for this long.
Yeah.
Where's the ladder?
We try this at home.
Yeah, you can try it at home.
Just try the record. That's 32?
One more, one more.
That's 32?
Yeah.
records?
Oh!
That's it.
Did we do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
33.
Oh,
This should be the Guinness.
Nobody breathe.
Anybody want to try and lift this?
I got it mid-fall.
Pretty strong guys. The whole thing.
Lift it from the bottom.
Oh, not the whole thing.
Oh my God.
I want to show you see how heavy it is.
You got it.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely.
What do you think, 50 pounds?
That's pretty.
50 hands.
No.
That's a good day.
You owe me a prize.
I won't give you the whole thing.
Bring it to the back.
And they took paper like this,
The Chinese made paper.
and they put one page behind the other. Until they had about 15 or 20 pages. Like this. And then they would spiral bind it together. Like that.
You have to hold that up there. You have to explain that again.
The Chinese would make paper and hold it up like that and spiral bind it. Now, in order to know what page it was on, they wrote a Chinese symbol on each page in the bottom corner. And if you happen to get a pad and go fast, that symbol jumped off. It didn't take an artist too long to draw a bird with wings in different positions in the corner of the paper. He went, and the bird did that. That was the beginning of motion picture. Nobody ever sat down to try to make a movie. It doesn't work like that. It works like this. Little by little, over. Do you
We learn
understand?
by experience, is what you're getting at? We learn by experience.
Yes.
We're inspired by nature.
But the more you see of technology, the broader your technology approach. You understand?
Is the mic on?
So, there are lots of things you have to know. And mostly,
I can't hear anything. Is the mic on?
Yeah, it's on.
so whenever they tell you angels fly around in heaven, angels have feathered wings according to drawings. And the feathered wing means a different biology altogether. So they can't even give you a good account of what the people do in the fly. I would say God in His infinite wisdom could make people fly without wings. They don't need wings. If God wanted men to fly without wings, He'd fly without wings. So why is everything so logical? Because man can't work those things out. So when I tell you that we're not civilized yet. As long as we have armies, navies, prisons, police, we are not civilized. We will be civilized one day when we teach our children how nature works, how everything we know of works. And the things we don't know, we'll say, this is what we don't know. We have no idea how they work. When you do that, I use the term ruthlessly honest. Anyway, when the principal said, Jacque, I'm going to have to call your mother in. I said, you do whatever you have to do. So he calls my mother in. She comes in crying. What did he do? Principal said, he didn't do anything. I said, what do you want? She says, I want to take him to a bookstore and buy the books he wants to read. but I want him to report to me once a week why he's reading that book. So that went on for 1.5 years, then he died, and they cut that privilege out. So I played hooky for 6 weeks. I didn't go to school. I left home with books, but I always went to the public library or museums and read what I wanted to read. The reason I didn't like the school books, they had books like Dickie Dare and His Sheep, On the Way He Met a Cow, Moo Moo Said the Cow, Ba Ba Said the Sheep. That is a nothing thing to give kids. To give kids Cinderella touches a white mouse and it turns into a beautiful horse. If you bring up kids with magic like that all the time, you damage kids. You should teach them about the physical world, everything we know about life, and what we don't know, and not the field. And see, all the kids in this country, I'd say about 99% are alike. They say the same thing to me. Hey you, I can run faster than you. Well, I bet I can fight you. Always the same thing. Why are they so competitive? Because the system is competitive. When I was a kid, all the movies had cowboys, and they had 2 guns, and they never sat down to discuss anything. They solved their problems with the guns. You remember that? In the early movies. So, we never had an intelligent society. So you'd never know what the future will hold. So what we're trying to do is tell people we need a different kind of society, without money, without politics, and a lot of automation. And women would never have to write their congressman for equal rights. The congressman wouldn't exist, and they'd have equal rights to start with. A woman that can do the work of a man doesn't earn the same amount as a man. Did you know that? They're abused. And women are taught to obey their husband. That makes it easier for the church. We don't want women to obey their husband. We want them to disobey when they're stupid. And men are just as stupid as everybody else. And who wrote the laws? The men. You understand that? So you don't have equal rights. So someday women will be engineers, architects, planners. They won't be wiping the baby's ass or cooking for the old man. He'll do his own cooking sometime. He'll switch. You know? Anyway, now's the time to question the hell out of everything. And don't accept anything I say unless you check it out as best you can. So, any questions that you feel might be difficult to handle?
What would you suggest being like the best way of introducing the Venus Project? What would you suggest being the best way of introducing the Venus Project to others?
You have to teach them a little bit about science first. When you ask a scientist how strong this is, he says, I don't know. He has to put it in a machine and twist it, tell you when it fails, pull it apart. And teach them the methods of science, the public, so that nobody makes decisions in the Venus Project. They arrive at them, say, I don't know to start with. So what's the best way to keep the oceans from killing the fish and then stop poisoning the oceans? We've been dumping radioactive material into the ocean. Did you know that? Spent stuff. And if you keep doing that, you're going to kill the fish. And if you kill the fish, you're going to eventually kill the people. So people are stupid because they are stupid. You don't want them to do that. So you have to educate them, which takes longer. And we can't get on the air. I can't get on the air. Because Larry King said to me, can you avoid talking about the dangers of cigarettes? I said, yes, I can, but I won't. He said, why can't you talk about the future and just leave out the automobile companies? Because I said the automobile companies put an airbag in front of you. And if you hit in front, it inflates. It's good. But if you get hit on the side, your head goes right through the glass. So the whole inside has to be an airbag, not just in front of you. So he said, why don't they do that? I said, I can't answer that, Larry. Anyway, he said, can you come on the air and talk about other things? Don't attack the auto companies and the gasoline companies, because the gasoline company don't want to see the electric car. Do you understand that? They like it when you drive an hour to work. They wouldn't like it if you lived across the street from where you worked. You wouldn't sell any gasoline that way. So they encourage you to enjoy driving to work. So I would say that your system is basically corrupt in the nature of its structure. Anyway, we want to get all the nations to join together, become one nation to take care of the earth and the environment. No dumping into the oceans or rivers or anything, or the air. A guy named Cottrell, about 80 years ago, designed a system to take smoke particles and pass them through an area where they become electrically charged. The next set of plates adheres to dust particles and smoke. So when you put one in an industrial stack, all you see is hot air coming out, no smoke. That could have been done 80 years ago. Still not done. So we don't apply science and technology where we can to make the world a better place. That's what I mean by a better place, where everybody has the opportunity to go to school without winding up in debt. You can become a doctor or anything, but you can't become a lawyer. There are no lawyers, no businessmen, no advertising in our society, and no funeral parlors. Because who's going to water your grave 150 years from now? Nobody. So no matter how many flowers you put there, it won't work. You still run away. People don't like that. They like to be, they fly off to another place up in heaven where everything is okay. There's no evidence there. It exists in the human mind, yes.
With the system being so corrupt right now, like you just said, with corporations, everything. If you were 19 years old right now, and you had your whole future in front of you, and you have all the knowledge that you have right now, how would you make what you're dreaming of happen?
Well, first of all, I would start instructing people, just like I'm doing here, trying to tell people there's another way. They think there's only the democratic way. The democratic way doesn't work, because if something goes wrong with your house electricity, you call an electrician, not the butcher. When something goes wrong with your plumbing, you call a plumber. So we have to have technicians that advise us, not the average politician. They're not good at it. Any other questions? Now's the time.
Yes, earlier when you were talking about the KKK, and they were fascinated with what seemed like magic, and most scientists that I've run into don't have a lot of faith in psychic phenomena. What's your attitude toward that whole?
When I read about psychic phenomena, you know what that is? Things beyond the physical. They told me that people have certain qualities that scientists never talk about. And that is, you know what telekinesis means? Moving objects without touching them. So a priest came to my session, 2 priests and 1 nun. I said, what are you doing here, Father? He said, I've come to hear your ideas. I said, you might give up the church. He said, never. So after about 10 sessions, both ministers resigned from the church and the nun got married. So I'm telling you what happened. So what happened to the priest, I said, you have to be honest before you can learn the system. No more magic. So they said to me, first, before all this happened, they said, Jacque, there are many things beyond the physical that you never talk about. I said, what's that? They said, telekinesis. I said, Father, have you ever seen it? Yes, I have. Take me there, because you're not a qualified observer, I don't think. So they took me to this woman at Palm Springs, California, who had the power of putting a jug on the table and moving that jug along the table. So I said, if she can do that, the hell with science. So she put a jug on the table and began to move. So I took my fountain pen and I moved it along the table, like this. And I found a little buzz in it. So I peeled off the veneer. She had a bell buzzer upside down with 4 rubber shock mounts. And the table was highly polished, slightly tilted. And the vibration moved the jug down the table. So I said, Father, this is how it's done. They said, well, don't you believe there's any genuine stuff? I said, so far, I've never found any. I went to a guy's house who claimed he had perpetual motion. He could turn a wheel without any electric motor or anything turning it. So I said, I'd like to see it, and he showed me that wheel. It was near the wall. I had a gadget called a magnetometer, and I put it near the wall, and I could trace magnets in the wall turning, which turned this gadget. So far, I've never experienced anything outside the physical, although I met a lot of people that claim that they talk to the dead. I said, what do you talk about? They don't answer that question. Yes?
Which is the right country you think you can start a prototype of the city?
Which is the right country you can start a prototype city?
I don't know. When we're thinking in terms of Brazil, if it's in the tropics, it's better. If we have access to geothermal energy, that is the energy inside the earth, the heat. There's heat there constantly over the years and centuries. It never gets less. There's always more energy there. So if you use geothermal energy, whereas photoelectric cells depend on the sunlight, and if you have a cloudy sky,